Hello, I am Sheila Devi Michael from Universiti Malaya, and my research topic is on elucidating the efforts of the Malaysian government in curbing human trafficking. This is an exploratory research. According to the United Nations definition, human trafficking or trafficking in persons is the recruitment, transport, transfer, harboring, or receiving of a person by means of threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, abduction, fraud, or deception for the purpose of exploitation. We have to understand that a victim need not be necessarily transported physically from one location to another for the crime to fall within this definition. Human trafficking is also known as modern-day slavery. And for the past decades, Malaysia has been facing myriad forms of human trafficking, such as sex trafficking, labor trafficking, child trafficking. And the government has been responding to circumvent the problem since 2007. However, despite the numerous efforts by the Malaysian government to curb human trafficking, it remained in Tier 3 of the United States Trafficking in Persons report, consecutively in 2021 and 2022. Therefore, the pertinent question is why Malaysia remained in the lowest tier despite the government's efforts. The Council for Anti-Trafficking in Persons and Anti-Smuggling of Migrants, ATIPSOM, released a data indicating more than 1,800 trafficking cases were reported in Malaysia between 2015 and 2021. And in combating human trafficking, the government is guided by the Anti-Trafficking in Persons and Anti-Smuggling of Migrant Act 2007 and also the National Action Plan on Anti-Trafficking in Persons. And the recent NAPTIP 3.0 was launched in March 2021. And it spells out country's vision, guiding principles and strategic goals, which clearly indicates the government's commitment and continuation of previous plans in efforts to combat human trafficking until the year 2025. And it also serves to support Malaysia's obligation and responsibilities at the regional as well as international levels. Now, this effort came forth after Malaysia was downgraded to Tier 3 of the 2021 UST report. Henceforth, this paper, as well as the presentation, aims to elucidate the efforts of the Malaysian government in responding to human trafficking in the country by analyzing its measures against the 4 pillars of the UST report. This is a graph indicating Malaysia's tier ranking by year from 2014 to 2021. The government has been downgraded to Tier 3 in 2014, and before this was in 2007. However, in 2017, Malaysia was upgraded to Tier 2, demonstrating that the government has made significant efforts to comply with the Trafficking Victims Protection Act standard. Whereas this graph from 2015 to 2022 highlights that in 2022, the Malaysian government did not fully meet the minimum standards to eliminate human trafficking and was not making significant efforts to do so, even considering the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on its anti-trafficking capacity. As a result, Malaysia remained in Tier 3. However, despite the relegation, the government took some steps to address, prevent, and curb trafficking in the country. The U.S. Trafficking in Persons mechanism have successfully gathered 175 nations to ratify or accede to the United Nations Trafficking in Persons Protocol, which clearly defines trafficking in persons and contains obligation to prevent and combat the crime. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000 minimum standards for the elimination of human trafficking allows the government to set a standard to comply. The fundamental framework designed to curb human trafficking with the inclusion of key stakeholders, none other than the non-state actors. It consists of 4 Ps, namely prosecution, protection, prevention, and partnership. The efforts of the Malaysian government are seen in the implementation of Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act 2007, which subsequently amended in 2010, followed by the creation of the Secretariat of the Council for Anti-Trafficking in Persons, MAPO, which was enforced in 2008 and amended in 2010 with the inclusion of smuggling of migrants and supported by various enforcement agencies as well as non-governmental organizations. Mini MAPOs were set up in all the states to coordinate human trafficking cases. Next was the establishment of the National Action Plan on Anti-Trafficking in Persons. NAPTIP is a 5-year framework, and implementing this plan would show significant efforts by the government in eliminating human trafficking. This is clearly a continuation of the government's efforts to strengthen its anti-trafficking response from its previous 2 national action plans, which spanned over a period of 10 years, from 2010 to 2020. As a result of the downgrading to Tier 3, Malaysia pledged its commitment to eliminate human trafficking by conforming to and improving the 4 Ps. Firstly, prosecution. It is through progressive improvement to meet international obligations as well as the regulatory TIP frameworks. Additionally, by ensuring that the policy is coherent with the broader national sustainable development agenda. Next, P is the protection. It is by establishing and maintaining an effective national referral mechanism for TIP so that victims or possible victims are accessible to justice and also able to receive protection and assistance. This also to ensure that rescued persons or trafficked victims are informed and have access to comprehensive assistance and support services that are trauma-informed, non-discriminatory, and gender and age responsive. This is also to develop new or improve existing models of protective and service delivery mechanisms, especially for trafficked persons, and all this is done in accordance with international standards. Next is prevention. It is by creating awareness on human trafficking and also to enhance knowledge on the general public on human trafficking, and also for the government to improve the reporting and referral process. Additionally, it is also to prevent victims from re-trafficking through education. Finally, partnership. It is through smart partnering with various stakeholders, also by encouraging the participation of relevant institutions, civil society organizations, and private sector in the nation's anti-trafficking in persons efforts and response. Moreover, to keep up with the robust networks of perpetrators, it is important to develop and improvise of an integrated user-friendly information management system that facilitates timely and comprehensive collection and analysis of statistics. As a conclusion, the Malaysian government has significantly demonstrated its commitment to eliminate human trafficking through its NAPTIP 3.0. However, there's room for improvement and the government should seriously look into the recommendations by the US TIP report. Even though the government conformed to the suggestions of increasing law enforcement capacity, however, it should consider boosting the prosecution of trafficking cases as well as improve interagency coordination. The government should also seriously work closely with civil society organizations, especially in enhancing victim identification, protection, as well as rehabilitation efforts. Finally, it should augment capacity building to train relevant officials, namely the police, labor inspectors, immigration officials, particularly on standard operating procedures for victim identification, including information on trafficking indicators. With that, I thank the organizer for giving me this opportunity to present my paper.